Welcome to Mums at the Table. I'm Rachel. I'm also here with Shona, and today we're talking about planning.
Are we? Oh, how are you going to go with that one?
I'm going to have to write notes because I'm not a planner. But who have we got coming up today?
Well, I think we've got the dietitian.
Yes.
Amanda, and our GP, Dr. Simone. I think she'll be in as well.
Yes, and don't forget, we would love to hear from you. If you've got questions around, dietitian, nutrition, write in. If you've got questions around medical stuff, our GP would love to hear from you.
Don't worry, we won't be answering them, but we'll get the professionals
We'll pass them on. Today we are talking about unexpected pregnancies and how you coped with that change or planned for it. Did you have a surprise pregnancy?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, the last one was a surprise.
How much of a shock was it? To scale of 1 to 10, how much of a shock was
15.
it? 15? It can be. It's
yeah.
Because you know immediately it's a life changer.
Yeah.
Not just physically but mentally.
It was for us because we, the first one of ours wasn't too healthy when he first came out, and then for Aaron came along sort of 17 months afterwards, and we were just like,
that's really close.
Yeah, that's really close. But, it was really interesting because even the family wasn't very supportive for us.
Oh, true.
Yeah, they were like, oh, really? How did that happen?
The funny thing is it's when you announce something like this, like an unexpected pregnancy, that you genuinely get people's honest opinion and surprise.
Because one of yours was
two of it.
Two, not just one.
I know, 2 was surprised. I was so scared to tell my husband because he wanted to stop at 1. But yeah.
And then you went back for how many?
Yeah, okay, we have 3, right? That's why 2 were a surprise. But yeah, you get that shocked face from others. And then the first question most people asked was it planned? Did you want that? Because I think they want to know whether they're going to be happy for you or not, because I think it is such a shock.
Yeah, it is.
What did you do to get over that? Over that shock?
Over the shock?
Yeah, because it takes such a mental shift.
Yeah, I think for us it was nice to be able to have another child, but also very concerning at the same, was it going to be the same sort of medical issues as the first one?
Yeah.
And then we had all the drama of, did we want to have, the exams and the
And that's quite a
medical
stress
stuff
in itself, isn't it?
So it took us a wee while to get our heads around.
Did it bring you and Gary closer together in terms of talking through it, just to get your heads around it?
We had to do a lot of talking through what procedures we wanted to go through, where we were going to go with it, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it did bring us closer. And I think the one thing that I would say to most people is just be careful how you speak around that conversation, because people are shocked and surprised themselves, so be very careful how you speak
and
around
I don't think people mean to be offensive.
No.
I don't think that's an intention, but it is something we need to think through, think before we speak, and what we say. Be that village, support them, because they might be going through some of that shock and that stress as well.
Hey, thanks for joining us for a chat. I'm sitting here with Dr. Simone. We're talking about treating eczema. 1 in 3 children in Australia have eczema.
Super common.
And 15% of children in New Zealand have eczema, so it's prevalent in a lot of our kids.
It's one of the things that I see most frequently in my practice.
What's going on? What's happening?
So the things that can contribute to developing eczema, if there's a history in your family of not just eczema, but also of things like asthma or allergies, hay fever, they all share the same underlying genetics. And so if you have asthma, your child may develop eczema as a result of...
It's genetic?
There's a huge genetic component to it.
So if you definitely have eczema, does that mean your child would definitely have, asthma or eczema or something like that?
There could be a susceptibility to that, and so you need to then be aware of all the things that you can do to reduce the risk of your child developing eczema.
What can we do to reduce that?
So this is a topic very dear to my heart. I was very concerned about my daughter getting eczema, and so when she was a baby, this is going to sound odd, my daughter only got bathed twice a week.
Okay.
we don't need to strip any more of the natural oils off of their skin than is absolutely necessary. Really be diligent about avoiding soap-based products, so using like a bath oil or even like a coconut or an olive oil in the bath, and don't have the water too hot. You almost want it as cool as they can tolerate rather than as hot as they can tolerate.
Well, they're not really doing marathons anyway.
No, they're not getting dirty enough to need a good scrubbing, that's for sure. Being really diligent about that, and also being really good about moisturising baby's skin is really important. So if you're not having a bath every day, then you can have a good rub with some moisturiser every day, and that can be a nice soothing activity to do together as well.
What about our diets? Is there anything that we can do as mums carrying babies if we know they might be susceptible to eczema that we can?
So this is where it starts to get really cool and interesting. There's some really clever research coming out talking about probiotic supplementation during pregnancy as being beneficial for hopefully preventing as high an incidence of eczema, and there are specific types of probiotics. So if you can remember Lactobacillus rhamnosus, I know that's a really long one, but that one is a really beneficial probiotic supplement for children and indeed adults who are suffering with eczema.
Right. Is there creams that we can get? Is there different stages of eczema? I know some are more severe than others.
So there's all of your over-the-counter products you can get in simple, plain, fragrance-free moisturisers. There are some medicated things, and then if the eczema is still not responding to that, then you may need to go down the path of a pharmaceutical option.
Thanks so much, Dr. Simone, for those tips. I'm sure that's helped you. If your baby is suffering from eczema or yourself, you know, go to your GP and get that professional help.
How to get kids to try new food. Now, that's huge. We're here with our nutritionist and dietitian, Amanda. Hello.
Hi, Gia.
Welcome again. Now, this topic is something I believe, this issue, a lot of families struggle with this, getting kids to try.
Yeah, they sure do. It's a big one. It's a common issue. And it's really because kids, they prefer familiar foods, don't they?
They do. My kids definitely do.
Yeah, and there's a number of reasons why kids don't like to try new things. It could be the flavour, it could be the texture, it could even be that they're trying to gain some level of control. Or it could be something else.
Well, how can you help us by giving us a few tips so we can give our viewers some tips on how we can do this for their kids? How do they get them to try new things?
Yeah, well, with my kids, I always talk to them and I say, you need to try just a little bit of the food before you decide whether you like it or not. And then I tell them all the things that I know they would love about the food.
That's a good tip.
Another thing you can do is you can describe the food, because I think new foods are a little bit scary, they're unknown. So just talk about it, explain it and say, you know, this food is crunchy and it tastes a bit like something that's familiar to them.
That's awesome.
Another thing to keep in mind is that kids often need to try a new food about 10 times before they'll actually accept it.
Okay, I've done that with my son.
Yeah.
So like chickpeas, for instance, he didn't like them. I hate chickpeas. And so we would just mush it up a bit and put a little bit in his dish, and then slowly he got familiar with it.
Well, that's perfect.
And he started eating it,
That's exactly what you need to do. You need to just give them the food on a regular basis, and eventually they might surprise you and like it. And even if they don't eat it, still keep putting it on their plate, because studies have actually shown that just presenting the food to the child regularly, they're more likely to accept it.
Later on.
Yeah, later on, that's right.
That's awesome.
Another thing is to, when you do introduce the food, just introduce it as a small amount. So it could just be a bite of the food, or it could be even less than that, just because this makes it a bit more achievable to kids.
So don't give them a whole new dish,
that's right. So just a small amount, a bite, or even a side dish, and have it with other foods that they do enjoy as well.
That's awesome. That's a really good tip.
That's right, and just one new food at a time.
One new food. And you did mention before we were talking about the hunger aspect, because we're talking about our own kids, the hunger aspect.
That's right. So when you introduce a new food, make sure your kids are actually hungry, as they're much more likely to try it.
Yes, they are. Because if they're full, I'm full, Mummy, I don't want that.
I know.
Yeah. Wow, thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate all these tips that you give us. Looking forward to seeing you next time. And with a new tip, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mums at the Table. You'll get some more tips there and you can repeat them. Thank you so much. See you next time.
Hey, thanks for joining Dr. Wood and I for a chat. We're talking about travelling when pregnant. Is it safe or is it not safe? Or when is a good time not reconsider your travel plans?
Look, generally, travelling is totally safe when you're pregnant,
Right.
up to a certain point.
Okay.
So if you have a normal, straightforward pregnancy,
Yes.
no complications, then it is fine to travel
On the plane?
on the plane up until about 36 weeks.
36
Yeah,
weeks?
35, 36. You need to basically be back in Australia or back at your destination by about 36 weeks.
Why do they say
Well,
you shouldn't travel?
Because, well,
Is there air pressure?
so as aeroplanes have lower pressure, and so the closer you get to turn, the more likely you are to rupture your membranes and then have a baby. And for some reason, the airplanes don't like it when you have a baby on the airplane.
Okay.
They consider themselves a taxi service, not a delivery service.
Yeah, good. Nice. Now, I know that when I had twins,
Yeah.
I was actually told I couldn't travel on the plane because I
Yeah.
wanted to go on.
So situations, there may be conditions to do with the location of your placenta
Right.
or concerns about the baby's welfare
Right.
that need closer monitoring, and so travelling under those circumstances would be unadvisable.
Unadvisable.
But your obstetrician or your clinician will be able to give that information. But there's a few things you can do if everything's normal
Yes.
to just reduce the risks and complications.
Let's talk about it.
Okay, right.
Let's talk about
So
it.
when you're pregnant, you've got about a 6 times more likely chance of getting a deep vein thrombosis in your leg.
Right.
And travelling on airplanes makes that worse again because of low pressure and sitting in cattle class.
Thrombosis is in blood clot?
Blood clot. Yeah,
Right.
blood clot in your leg. So it's called DVT is the other term people refer to.
Yes.
So when you're pregnant and you're flying, we recommend strongly that you get some of those compression stockings from your
Right.
chemist.
Okay.
Need to be fitted, need to be fairly snug, at least
Yes.
up to here.
Right.
If they're too tight, that's no good, but your chemist will advise you and get the right ones for you.
Okay.
Secondly, you need to drink a lot of water because getting dehydrated on the aeroplane can reduce blood flow and
Yeah.
therefore increase your chance
So
of clot.
even if you don't feel like drinking, have a drink.
Absolutely.
Because like the aircon, it kind of...
Dries you out.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, if you drink a lot of water, then you have to get up and go to the toilet a lot.
Right.
So that also means you're moving around the airplane. So if possible, about once an hour, do a lap of the plane. So it's
Good.
probably good to sit on the aisle seat rather than a window seat and annoying all your neighbours getting in and out all the time.
Okay.
So those are the sort of 3 basic things. Compression stockings, drink lots of water, move around lots.
Move around lots.
Lastly, you'll need to get some sort of documentation from your obstetrician or clinician to say it's safe to travel.
Yes.
And usually it has to be within a week prior to your travelling date. So if you're leaving on the Monday,
Yep.
the week before, you need to see your obstetrician and say, is it safe for me to travel? And he can give you a letter, which the airline will require from you,
Awesome
particularly
tips.
after 20 weeks gestation.
Okay, after 20 weeks. That's so important. Dr. Wood, thank you so much for those tips. Now, I know that would help you at home. Keep it locked here on Mums at the Table.
Okay, so how do you cope with all those last-minute cancellations to an event that you've planned for your kids?
Well, we had a question from a mum on Facebook on our closed Facebook page,
Yep.
and she was concerned about this issue, wasn't she? That she'd had a birthday party and a whole lot of the guests had pulled out. I know what I'd be doing.
Oh, let's ask. What would you be doing?
Well, I've had this happen a few times, not very often, and they've just been deleted off the guest list.
Ooh, so they're not invited to any more parties,
No,
any more
not if they
functions?
don't have a reasonable answer for why they didn't come.
Do you go around checking for those reasonable
My
answers?
oath I do. Look, I've put all this time and all this energy into inviting people, getting food ready, getting a party organised. And if they don't have the decency to RSVP to me or to ring up and say, Shona, I can't come, then I don't find that
Okay.
very polite.
No, and it's not. And confession time, I have been that mum who hasn't RSVP'd every single time. I know. She's never, ever invited me. She just knows me. But I understand how frustrating. I think even more so it's hurtful for the kid if all of these, if there's a whole bunch of people that don't turn up. But surely that's a rare scenario. Surely that doesn't happen all the time.
Well, I'm starting to wonder, is it happening more and more? Because a few times I've had that happen when I've invited people over to lunch. They're like, oh, we'll get back to you. And it's almost like, well, are you waiting for a better offer? Because, mate, you're not going to get much better than my food.
Well, this is true. I think I have, in my kids' parties, I've also planned for a certain portion or a certain percentage to not turn up. Because life, at this age, this is the crazy part of life. This is when people probably have that legitimate excuse. This one's sick. You don't want them coming sick to a party. You know, this has happened, family, you know, ...
But don't you think as Christians that we should value friendship a bit more than what we're seeing? Like, for me, friendship is a really big part of me being a Christian.
Yeah, I think those connections are important, and I think some of those connections get lost, therefore you lose a bit of that value.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying about that.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I haven't found it happen all the time. As I said, I cater for that, for a few people not coming. But, I mean, what do you do? Are you the mum that RSVPs every time? What have you done when someone doesn't RSVP to your party, or, you know,
Cut them off the list.
Ouch. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, we've actually got our Mums at the Table Facebook group. Now, that's a private group on Facebook. A whole heap of mums there. You can get support there, ask questions. We would love to hear from you there. But that is it from us today on the show. Anything more from you?
No, that's it.
That's a surprise, but we're going to take it while we've got it. We'll see you next time.